Okay, I'm just sharing the screen. Able to see?
Yes, Balaji.
Okay,
Yes, we can
okay,
able to
good.
see.
So, welcome you all to this particular webinar. So, I just thought to make this a webinar to have a connect with the people in terms of actually understanding. So, what are the what no like in terms of understanding what are all the ground level challenges you have, either as a Scrum Master or as an Agile coach. So just to begin the journey, this is the first slide, which I generally put it in a webinar to have our mind open enough to receive the new thoughts and to basically unlearn know certain things before we begin to relearn the new concepts or fundamentals. Maybe the participants can all go on mute. Whenever needed, you can unmute it, please. Okay, thanks. So, okay, so before we actually begin the webinar, this is a kind of a agenda what I had in mind. A quick introduction about myself because it makes the relevance to get to know the host, right? When you are participating in a webinar, and in terms of my journey, just one or two slides to tell you how does the becoming a Scrum Master, becoming a successful Agile coach is not a cakewalk, like as we all know. And I think the very purpose most of you have joined this webinar is actually resonating with the fact that we as a Scrum Master or as an Agile coach, we do have our limitations in terms of doing an Agile transformation. So within the constraints, how we can optimize value to extract value. That is what this particular webinar is going to tell us. And how does a day look like in the life of a Scrum Master or as an Agile coach? So wherever you see the word SM, you can take it as Scrum Master. Can you all go on mute, please? Okay, thank you. Okay, so day in the life of a Scrum Master or as an Agile coach, and what could be the limitations of Agile certifications, what we have in the market, and how I can actually help you in this particular journey. Maybe fortunately, if you have some mentors or leaders in your own organization, then you can actually showcase your successful case studies to us. If not, we will see we will see what can be done, because unfortunately in my situation I was not able to get a mentor or a leader within my organization. Okay, of course I had my own mentor outside the official boundaries. So just wanted to okay, just wanted to hear from you all on that particular point of view. And why do we need a mentor to expedite the career growth? Okay, this is a kind of a agenda. Based on the dynamics we can actually customize or contextualize it here and there. Okay, so this is a one sec. Okay, so this is a quick introduction. Some of you know me already, as I see from the participants' name. But for some of you who are joining my webinar for the first time, this is a quick glimpse of my experience in terms of IT and also in terms of the agile world, and in terms of the educational qualifications. These are the qualifications, and this is my LinkedIn profile. Since it has been written over there, I'm not going to read it word by word, respecting your level of experience and expertise. Let me go to the next slide. Oh,
Ral, ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ.
sorry. Okay, let me go to the next slide. See, this is a journey. What I like to tell you is that the whatever challenges you are having or whatever limitations you are facing in your job, please be no, please understand that it is not the challenge only you are having. Most of us who had underwent the journey of Scrum or underwent the journey of Agile had a very similar challenge. I may not use the word same, but I may prefer to use the word similar, because when I started my Agile journey, there was no one to even know tell the basics of Agile, and I was actually literally struggling. Somewhere in 2009, I was actually working as a performance test lead with a product-based company. At that time, like I got introduced to this Scrum, Kanban, Agile. I am saying something which is 11 years back. So at that time, no, we were not having good materials. We were not having good YouTube videos, even for reference. So I had a lot of challenges in terms of actually understanding, hey, what is this all about Agile? So what do you mean by Scrum? Is actually Scrum is Agile, or Agile has something more than that? And there was no formal training in my case when I started my journey in 2009. Like no, I was not given a formal training on Agile, and suddenly we also used to have Agile audits. So do I need to maintain more documentation or lesser documentation? Because Agile says just enough documentation. What do you mean by just enough? What enough quantity is called just enough? So these were all the doubts which was there in my mind for many months or many years, but no one was there to clearly clarify me with a practical example. Of course, from theoretically I can get some points. So, and one more pain point what we had is some of the companies promised to their clients saying that, hey, we do have a very good capability or may I request you to go on mute, please? Okay, so some of the companies they actually claim to their clients saying that no, we do have an in-house of agile experts, and then they get the projects, and then they try to put undue pressure on the employees. Okay, so let me take a pause here. Does someone want to add here any kind of a similar challenges what you had, like like basically when actually you were getting to introduced to the agile world? I just like to hear from you. So okay, I just like to hear from you, like what kind of challenges you had when you just begin your agile journey.
Hi Balaji, this is Vivek here.
Yeah, Vivek, please.
Yeah, so I did my certified Scrum Master in 2014,
Okay.
and then when I started that time only Jira was introduced in my team.
Okay.
So it took a lot of effort for me to set up the entire setup, especially the Scrum board and Kanban board, everything for my project. So I was very glad. So initially,
Vivek, one second,
there
Vivek.
was no mentor for
Vivek,
us.
one
So
second.
everything I Googled myself, and then I learned most of the things. And then, yeah, it was very challenging for me when initially I started setting up Jira, especially as a part of this, and to mentor the teams how to like what they need to tell, like what I mean every day in the Scrum meetings, what they need to tell, what they have to update, and all like what we have done today, what we will be doing tomorrow, what are the impediments. And sometimes the discussion used to go off with respect to the technical things. And when I used to tell like this is not the meeting to debate or discuss about the technical things, like
Yes.
then I mean, my teammates went on and complained manager that why should we not discuss all these kind of things and all. So yeah, these are the challenges when we introduced Scrum in our team. So these are the challenges that I faced.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot for actually sharing it. Anyone else want to add some other points in terms of your some kind of challenges at the beginning of the game?
Yes, Balaji. This is Parshuram here.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Personal.
uh, yes. So the challenges like the leader or the manager for the teams, right? They actually join and try to influence the conversation in the stand-up. So
Okay.
that is the very first challenge I have had. And the other thing is, people used to run waterfall inside Scrum. So what they do is they try to horizontally slice the user stories rather than vertical slicing,
Okay. Okay.
right? And at the same time, even product would not have that vision of like giving that every sprint increments. They always think, right? Okay, this is my end date, so I want something. Then that is my third point. So, and the fourth and final point is, people tend to have six priorities in a quarter, and teams, right, slowly, maybe in the mid quarter, they will have hands on all six initiatives or objectives rather than completing one and picking up next.
So can I take it as all six is or all six is partially done, kind of a thing?
Yeah, that is partially done. And, in my experience, towards the end of the quarter, right, only one or two is done. And rest of the four is like partially done or only 25%, 30% done.
Okay.
Because they really don't get, it's something like, right, one of the thief where everything is in WIP. They are not really completing.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you please tell once again what is this end date? I could not get it fully. What is this?
I mean the end date, meaning we would have projected. Yes, that's they come from the waterfall mindset and they come up with a rolling out date, or this is where the product has to go. Like,
is fixed, you are
they
saying.
really do not.
Is it a sprint planning
Yes,
date
yes.
or it's a release date?
No, it's a release date.
Okay, release date. Fine. So these are all some So when we actually go to the respective slide where we have the challenges, at the time, I will also try to share as much perspectives as possible to address these particular challenges. More than a challenge, all these things seems to be an anti-pattern. We will see what is a challenge, what is an anti-pattern. Challenge is something process followed correctly, but due to limitations, we are not able to do. Anti-pattern is something process itself is followed wrongly. For example, assigning a story point to a task. It is not a challenge, it is an anti-pattern. Because story point should be assigned to a user's story, as the name indicates. If I assign it to the task, then it is an anti-pattern. So somewhere we need to see what is the clarity between a challenging situation and an anti-pattern. And what's more important is how do you remove the anti-pattern? Because, okay, let me give a real-time example. If I see an anti-pattern in my teams, I cannot directly go to the teams and then change it because we have a communication management in place. I need to go to the product line level or at a product group level and then correct it. And then the communication should come from that level. That is the reason I am still saying, just because you are learning Scrum or Kanban or anything, please do not forget the fundamental of project management. Because though you are implementing Scrum or Kanban, in much of the environment, we are executing projects only. Only very few companies have that product mindset. So your capabilities of project, like in terms of scope, in terms of cost, in terms of time, in terms of communication plan, in terms of stakeholder engagement, all these things are inevitably needed. Only thing is, we are taking a lean approach in the name of Agile. See, say for example, in one of my projects, someone told me requirements are not clear because due to Agile. Obviously, no. We as a team, one need to have clarity on what are we trying to do. Even in a waterfall model, requirements clarity is inevitably needed. All that Agile says is instead of maintaining bulky documentation for requirements, why don't I take a lean approach to requirements in terms of converting it into a user story? That's it. One more thing, what Agile says is don't plan too much, plan just enough and implement the plan and factor the feedback loop. So if someone says requirements are not clear because of Agile, it is a systemic issue. Agile has nothing to do with that. So we need to be very careful going forward when someone says because of Agile, because of Scrum, because of Kanban, question them back. You take a pause, you understand first, okay, before asking them some question. Is it really a problem due to Scrum Kanban, or the product owner is giving off-baked requirements, or product owner has a systemic challenge in terms of getting the product objectives and priorities from the business? Those things we need to see, okay? So I don't want to get into the solution part deliberately now because we have parked aside some slides for that, but just want you to know, get the feel out of it. Okay. So here, these are all my own challenges. So when I got introduced to Agile, I just know this word called a daily stand-up call. Okay, we all as a team need to meet there and we need to discuss. And there was no formal training given. And I had some challenges in terms of handling compliance and governance activities. And for example, like this particular problem was also there. See, generally they will tell the job seekers slightly tend to exaggerate the resume to get a job. Companies also do it by and large. Okay, like I'm not saying all the companies, obviously wrong it is. Some of the companies, they generally tend to get the project. They used to give a false propagation. We have 50 agile coaches, we have 30 scrum masters, we have this, we have that. Once the deal gets signed, then they will hunt for the resources. And till then, the existing resources will be put to undue pressure. This is the reality, okay, which happens in many of the service, which happens in many of the service-based organizations. Okay. So what happened in my case? In my case, what I did is, this is what I did, which has been put in the slide. Okay. Okay. I'm not telling you to do the same thing. All that I wanted you to know is what I did, how I tried to plug the gap on my own. First, I went to a bank and took a loan, and I completed 12 agile certifications. Of course, within a period of 3 to 4 years, I completed 12 certifications in agile, and then I first started attending meetups. So at the beginning days, I used to go for most of the meetups in the Chennai location on the weekend and start attending the meetups, like, and then try to know what's been really happening over there. And then what I did is that slowly I actually picked up the momentum and I started becoming a contributor. So in some of the meetups, I have actually presented a topic on a Kanban metrics. In some meetups, I have presented a topic on a safe model. So once I observed it, I was actually able to pick it up to some extent. And within some 6 months or 1 year, I was actually able to contribute as a participant. And then I slowly started writing blogs. I started writing articles, post on a LinkedIn. And of course, it took 10 years of time for me to move from a scrum master level to the level of an executive agile coach. So today I am working as a AVP, associate vice president. And in terms of my role, I'm actually playing the role of a leadership agile mentor, wherein I coach my AVP, VP, and the SVP of my client side so as to do a business transformation. In that, agile transformation is one small piece to the cake. Okay, I just wanted to tell you that I am operating at a level of a business transformation, wherein agile transformation is is actually one of the vertical pillar. Okay, so this is what my journey. Now I like to hear from you. Do you see a pattern in your own journey, or do you need to highlight anything here before we go to the challenges? Like, do you want to add add a similar kind of a path what you had, or actually do you feel that something you have not done which is there in this slide, and if you think no, maybe if I do it, I know you will also progress. So what kind of thoughts come to your mind?
The first thing is,
Balaji, I have a doubt.
yeah. Hi. This is Srinivas.
Yeah.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, Srinivas, go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Let us go one by one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Srinivas. I have total 16 years of experience into IT industry. I have done my SAFE and CSM certifications.
Okay. Yeah.
So from last 4 years, I'm working as a Scrum Master.
Okay.
So now the project manager. Okay, Agile project manager kind of thing. Playing a role of Agile project manager and program. But one thing I observed in the Scrum Master career is he's not having a right career path.
Okay.
So he's stucking at the whatever the Scrum Master. If he get the experience, 3-4 years, senior Scrum Master or principal Scrum Master, like that only. In some companies are there. All companies are not maintaining the same thing. In SAFE has changed some of the things, and to the Scrum Master role, next level is the RTA, right? RTE.
Correct.
Release train engineer. From there, you can go to the mainly to that program management completely for the agile agile at the organization level. That is the one of the path I choose. But after that, I really don't know where it will go again from there, because from the main thing is the career path, career ladder, which companies are offering which this one, whether we will be there into this Scrum and Agile path. Everyone in the companies and organization looking at it as a very smaller thing. Scrum or Agile is everyone can do. Only just they are doing as a ceremonies, right? What Scrum Master will do in all the mindset, what is there in the everyone's mindset is what Scrum Master will do. He will do the ceremonies. He will schedule a meetings. After that, his job is over. Like that. So value for the Scrum Master is very less compared to project managers and all everything. Because many project managers are people managers. Because one of the I don't know how many people is having the same path. Because Scrum Master don't have any team and all, right? He's a collaborator or individual contributor, so you don't have anything, right? So in that way, people are looking him as a different personality or something.
Okay.
I don't know how many of you into the same path, or just when service companies, if you go, they will be, if that is a 3 months or 6 months project is there, after that again, there won't be any Scrum Master position. He has to go to the different location or some other location. This is also causing one of the reason for, I don't know, maybe that is my experience and what I observed from the groups and all is there.
Let me share. Let me share whatever thoughts come to my mind or my own perspective. See, first thing, we need to decouple something called a designation from the role.
Okay.
Which we all need to agree. Okay. Typically, in an Indian context, designation is something different. Role is something different because role is purely driven by the project or the account or the client. Your designation is something different. If you take my own case, my designation is AVP.
Right.
But what is the role I am actually playing? I am playing the role of an executive coach.
Right.
Okay, so in my goal sheet, I have certain parameters designated for the AVP in terms of revenue margin, quarterly budget, all those things, whereas certain parameters are defined by the client, which is point number one. Point number two is this particular agile itself is been, even today, I will still say it is an unconventional path. Now only organizations are trying to embark upon this particular path, and now only they are started to talk about business agility. So when someone talks something, it will take 5 to 6 years to get it done. So now only companies are understanding, yes, agile is not been, it is not enough if it just confine only to the IT department. We also need to work in a agile manner across multiple departments, because your enterprise is a system. Your enterprise doesn't exist in a silo world. So one of the common example what I used to tell to my mentees in my agile mentorship program is, even if one person in the house is not contributing to the happiness of the house, the entire family will get suffer. Similarly, if you want to really do an enterprise agility, it is not enough only if the IT department works in a agile manner. Now the question will come. Okay, now you are telling that all the departments need to work in a agile manner, but how we can do it this way?
One
We
more
can
question.
actually,
One more question here.
yeah, one second. I'll just complete this point. This is a schematic representation. You take all the departments: IT department, finance department, HR department, marketing or pre-sales, IT support or a DevOps. I have given some pointers. When I say finance department, introduce dynamic budgeting. HR department, coach them on team-based performance appraisal. Marketing department and pre-sales guys should understand, when you write an RFP, what do you mean by a minimum viable product, minimum marketable feature, minimum marketable release, minimum marketable product. I cannot have my traditional mindset and write an agile RFP or an agile contracting model. You see, your enterprise as a system, your value stream cut across all the layers. If you really wanted to do enterprise agility, sometimes people get confused between process agility versus structural agility on versus enterprise agility. Doing Scrum, Kanban, stand up call, Jira, all these things may be process agility. It is not enterprise agility.
Right.
And your enterprise Kanban board should contain initiatives for all the departments.
Correct.
Okay.
They have a big picture and a dashboard. Their dashboard should have all the.
Correct. And one more thing, my impediment backlog, because my backlog is also, my impediment can also be put in a backlog, right? At an organization level, this is an impediment. What are all the impediment, and assign it to the respective teams. Okay, so okay, this is just a pictorial representation which I have done for one of my client. For one of my client who is an US based banking client. Now we are almost done with implementing Agile across all the departments. But believe me, it is an 18
This means a lot. This means a lot for
it
the
has
organization.
taken, see, it has taken 18 months of a hard work. Lot of hard work went inside. So, okay. Why am I showing this particular diagram is, I also wanted to tell you that we walk the talk. I don't want to just show something in the thin air and then close the webinar. So with this particular field, if you approach enterprise agility, it will give more grip. Okay, so just to stay focused on the topic, so okay, so this challenge is like, okay, now see, whatever you have articulated is perfectly fine, but it is based on your own experience and the perception. In my experience, if you are a scrum master, then you can become a team level agile coach. If you take my case, okay, for me this was the path. I actually became an integration level coach, also called as a program layer coach, and then I became an enterprise agile coach. After this, I actually became an executive coach. Okay okay See, now this is more on the role, but if you take the designation, yes, I fully agree, it was something like a senior manager here. Okay, a kind of a senior manager combined a kind of a delivery manager here, and here and all, it was something like, even based on the companies, you also have something like senior delivery manager, group manager, some fancy terms. Okay, as long as it is making some relevance in the ecosystem, it is okay. Then followed by the AVP. So okay, so just to cut a long story short, designation is something different, role is something different, and you need to decide what your heart says, where your interest area is thing. See, generally people say, okay, what is the market demand? Yes, market has demand for a big data Hadoop architect, but if your heart is not towards big data Hadoop architect, then why to take the path? Of course market demand plays a role, but you need to feel what comes easily for you, what comes naturally for you. Okay, so that, and also the job or career should have a purpose behind it. So I always look for purpose, like, no, like it should be oriented towards my passion, it should be oriented towards my purpose, and also oriented towards my natural capability. I strongly believe agile coaching came to me naturally, so I took that path. It is not that I will not be successful if I become a DevOps consultant, but my passion is not towards it. So you need to factor all these points and define a career trajectory for you, right? Generally speaking. So see, when you write a letter,
One more question.
yeah, yeah, 1 second, Srini. So like when you write a letter, predominantly the content part should be defined by you. Of course, on the presentation part, you can get guidance, but you should not go and ask someone, hey, what should be the content of the letter? So that's what I'm trying to say. Take some time, ponder upon, and then create a career trajectory for you and see the relevance of it, and then keep going from there. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Here, one more observation from my side on the Agile side is, there is no strong this one like a PMP. Okay, PMP is a kind of a very good standard procedures, processes, everything is there. So in this, everyone is using in their own model way, their own way of doing all those things. Moreover, what happens, all they are bringing the managers at the senior level and all. They know something about the agile. They learn from some of the groups or some coaches or something.
Correct.
And they're bringing their own thing and making it as a hybrid model kind of thing. Some companies follow in a different way.
Okay.
And there is no right path, and nothing is there in the not designed, their own, whatever their own understanding, because those managers, seniors and all executives, they come from the background, from the PMP kind of a background, and software that SDLC life model, right? When they are looking at the Scrum or Agile, that is a 2-week sprint where the Scrum Master will do and the product will be developed by whatever the requirements will be developed by the product owner. We will be delivering in such a manner. But in that also, they will be doing the hybrid software development life cycle kind of work. Because some of the companies, what happens, yeah. Hello.
Yeah. I think, okay. Yeah. Yes, Srini, go ahead.
Yeah. So my understand from some of the companies is there. See, for development, complete development and functional testing, one complete sprint will go. For regression testing, load testing, one more sprint will go. After that, release will happen. It will take total 3 months. Is this the way all the organizations are operating?
Okay,
Is this
so-
the agile way of doing the development and the delivery?
Okay, got it. So let me tell you one thing. See, my style of, because every person has their own way of working.
No. I'm. See, it's people working in a different companies. They got all those things, and when management comes and put all these things
See,
again.
my suggestion, okay, sorry to interrupt you. See, my suggestion is don't look for correct answers. But look for appropriate answers.
Right,
that is not needed out of experience. If you want to look for correct answers, then just read only certifications and a CSM guide and then finish it, or your Scrum guide. What is relevant in this current industry is it is not correct answers. It is appropriate answer, because being correct is slightly different from being appropriate to the situation. Given
no. This is all of the experience with the different companies and organizations.
Yeah. So
they just wanted to implement the agile for the sake of customer or something.
Okay. So let me tell you how I used to handle my team of teams. Because when you operate at a program layer or a portfolio layer, it is not single team. You have a team of teams. First of all, I will not start my agile transformation by talking about agile. Though it may seem to be illogical and though it may seem to be counterintuitive, believe me, this will work out. Don't talk about Scrum Kanban. Talk about the pain points of the people. Talk about what is the pain point the current existing landscape has. For example, for one of my clients, we had a lot of challenges in terms of handling the workflow, end-to-end business workflow. So what I did, I actually spent some time to understand what are all why the defects, delays, dependencies, impediments, risk come in the picture. So understand the landscape, get a grip on the landscape, and try to help people to solve their pain point. Only people will resonate with you if and only if they see value from you in terms of solving their own pain point. No one is actually interested to do an agile transformation. Everyone is interested to safeguard their own work, and this agile transformation should not create a psychological unsafetiness. So we see the point is simple. Agile transformation has two words. Everyone are talking about agile part. What about the transformation part? If transformation is so easy, then why industry is recruiting 20 years of experienced guy as an agile coach? Anyone can become by and large a certified Scrum Master by just spending a week. They can as well take a fresher and then put it. So okay, so my suggestion is forget about Scrum, Kanban, Agile transformation, everything. Understand the landscape. What is the pain point in the landscape? From there, you need to start the journey. And to implement your journey, yes, you may need to take some best practices from Scrum or Kanban or SAFe, whatever makes utmost relevance. See, I cannot give exact problem because problem varies from person to person. But if you keep this in your mind, I'm sure that you can solve n number of problems. Okay, so just in the interest of time, some other person was trying to ask a question, right?
Sure. Sorry, I took.
That's okay.
Balaji,
yeah.
Pranavi here. I have also one question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Balaji, actually they say anti-patterns about that, and we should not follow anti-patterns in Scrum, right? But in service-based company, we never follow 100% Scrum. So if you think in my case, like when I joined in a company in Singapore,
Okay.
yeah, what happened? They had already started the project,
Hmm.
and within 3 months, they got a lot of technical debt.
Okay, fine.
Because there was no technical architect in that project. So then when I went and convinced my higher level management, they are saying Agile means self management, and we took so many senior analysts, they will manage. But they are actually not having, because it was a Pega project and they took Java developers, and they developed the project in Java only. They minimally used Pega. But I know Pega and Java, so I know how Pega works and I know how Java works. So I really felt that I need a technical architect, but they are saying it is a anti-pattern.
No. Okay. So let me try to understand this particular situation. When there is a mismatch in the capability or the skill set, the project is bound to fail even when you execute it in any model for that matter. Even in waterfall model also it will fail. Even in Agile also it will fail. Only thing the failure will be shown very soon in Agile. See, Agile has nothing to do with solving these problems. These are called the systemic issues. That's what I'm trying to tell. I understand that you are not accountable for finding an answer to this in your organization. But what I used to tell my leaders is, when you are implementing Agile transformation, let us be careful that there are no systemic issues, first of all. When there is a skill set mismatch, how people can deliver value? Irrespective of the methodology being used. Is it a problem confined to Agile or Scrum? Absolutely no. Your demand and supply should match. If not, how will you deliver things?
And having a technical architect is irrelevant to whether we are following Agile or this one, waterfall,
for example,
right?
whatever be the project, you need to do a competency assessment matrix grid for the project, saying that, hey, these are all the capabilities needed for the project. I fully agree the weightages could slightly differ based on the need of the project. But then these are all the skill sets needed for the project. See, now the point is simple. People talk, okay, the Agile books talk about self-organized. You cannot become self-organized when you don't have a cross-functional team. The best way to make a team to become self-organized is make the team cross-functional first. Automatically, the team will become self-organized. And as someone rightly pointed out, we don't need people managers. We need process managers, maybe. Okay. So my suggestion is what I used to do, I will tell. Okay. What I used to do is, we used to do two things here. We used to create a technical debt remediation plan, point number one. Point number two is, we actually go for hardening sprint. Hardening sprint is a sprint exclusively dedicated. The goal of the sprint itself is make your code base stable first. Means stabilization of existing code base. Because I cannot scale up on a crappy code. If I scale up on a crappy code, the defects will get multiplied. So first you stabilize the existing code, and the concept is called a hardening sprint. And once I'm done with the hardening sprint, then I will go for the actual sprint. Okay, ideally speaking, one should not get into this particular situation itself. It is like you are okay. How to tell? Okay, it is like already you have driven your car to the cliff, no, to the cliff of a mountain. If you are not careful, the car will fall down. It is in a very dangerous state. So don't make any movement. Try to reverse the car. Come back to the neutral plane of existence first before talking about a new sprint. So we used to go for a hardening sprint and this technical debt remediation plan. Okay, now from a metrics point of view, how do we corroborate it? That's why we are having metrics related to quality. Whether you execute it in waterfall model or whether you you use Scrum or Kanban or Spotify or SAFe, without delivering a quality end result, all other metrics go for waste. Your predictability, your productivity, your responsiveness, burn up, burn down chart, release level burn up, program increment level burn up, everything is based if there is an escaped defect in the product. Correct? Considering quality cannot be compromised, how are we going to play the triple constraints of the project? Scope, cost, and time. That is the game. No one is there to compromise on the quality. If quality goes for task, I don't even look into my client will stop my engagement itself. And that too, if there are SOW clause saying that if there is a critical bug in the production beyond 4 hours, 5 hours, I still go for 10% billing cut, depending upon the client. So that part of handling will come in your agile contracting model. So what you need to do is you need to go for a hardening sprint and make the existing code base deemed fit to continue the further sprint. And you need to tell this and somehow try to get the things done.
Balaji, sorry to interrupt you. I have one doubt on this. See, I think Pranavi, I believe. So she was asking like she needs, I mean, she wanted to have a technical architect, someone in to play that role, and they should take the, they should see whether the technical depth and all they should. I think here we will be having a product owner, right? I think he will play, I mean, he has to, he will be held responsible for this one, right? So
no. How come product owner will be held responsible?
Product owner is
product
not
owner is
technical
just
person,
on prioritizing the features. Not see, product owner is the business value maximizer. Product owner role is to tell what needs to be done. Means in terms of the product and delivery, what are all the priorities? How to get it done? See, that is why I generally tell to my leaders, you still have a project manager. Don't remove project manager because a scrum master is there. Because see, first of all, when someone asks me, can you compare project manager with a scrum master? Absolutely no. I don't like to compare. Can you compare a fruit and a vegetable? Absolutely no. Both fruit and vegetables are good for health. But then fruits operate at a different level, vegetables operate at a different level. It doesn't make any relevance of taking a fruit and comparing it with a vegetable because both has their own niche areas. A project manager is a guy who is managing the triple constraints of a project. I'm not talking about project coordinators and guys who fill the timesheet, raise invoice alone. Project manager should handle scope, cost, and time. Scrum master is a facilitator, process facilitator guy. So there's no point in, so if you have project manager, that person should take care of this particular demand supply mapping and raise an alarm to the client or the leaders. Okay, Parasuram, do you have anything you want to highlight something?
I have a question to Pranavi, right? That is related to how did she identify the tech debt? And what is the reaction about the tech debt within the team?
Hello, could you please repeat it? Yeah, could you
No,
please
the question is two parts of this question. So how did you identify tech debt? Okay. And number two is, I mean, identify in the sense, what is the metric? You said, this much tech debt is available. And the second part of the question is, what is the reaction of the team?
Yeah. So because I am from technical background, in Pega, it will generate how many warnings and how many suggestions it is throwing for every tree, like infinite loops, everything in terms of technical stuff. So,
Correct.
so actually, yeah. So everything was like there are hundreds of warnings. Even if I see the logs, dumps, I took the log dump and I see there are infinite threads running in infinite loops. So then I thought that I can't do everything, right? As a Scrum Master, I need to take care of my multiple different location, distributed teams and technical part. I can't do this much. So, but
if I paraphrase it, you have identified it running the code.
Exactly.
It is not that number of bugs or number of defects.
Yeah, see, the thing is the testers are not finding any bug because it is initial level. They are thinking it is the right way, but at the background So
I
we
see.
don't have any workflow, case flow for the particular module. So it is everything in running in the model dialogue, HTML model dialogue. That is totally opposite to how Pega works.
Other people can go on mute if someone is not talking.
So that's why I thought that, but and also I convinced my team to like have a meeting with my delivery head and all. But they started a self-organizing team. We took a lot of senior people, but they are all Java based. They are not Pega based. So
Okay, so they, okay, the team's point is they will not be able to resolve these warnings by themselves. They need a tech arc to resolve those.
they don't know because they are
Okay.
Java based. So
Okay, got it.
yeah, they
Okay,
get
okay,
Pega work,
okay.
but since they are working for an organization, they have to do what they have been given, right? So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were
no,
just
now I understand. No, I understand it clearly. So though there is a defect or there is a problem, they don't know how do we resolve that.
yeah,
That is
how
the
we
knowledge gap.
yeah
Got it.
the architectural wise planning we were missing in that project.
Got it. Okay. Okay. All
So,
right.
but
Thanks.
my
Thanks.
management question was why we are self-organizing. Agile means self-organizing. Why you need architect? I don't have answer. It is an anti-pattern, but I don't have answer. But my code is becoming worst day by day. So I can only say that one.
See,
No,
Got it. In fact, do you own the code? You don't own the code, right?
I don't own the code, but at least what you are doing as a Scrum Master, they will question me, right? After 3-4 months, we hired you. Then what did I say? And you as a technical person, because of that only I hired you so that you can look after everything.
yeah, so
Got it.
if they have hired you as a technical Scrum Master, because nowadays company is expecting a technical Scrum Master. If it is a technical
Correct.
Scrum Master, then yes, the story is something different. But if they have hired a process Scrum Master and if they are expecting that the team should become self-organized, maybe that's a different game. Okay, so
No, I think
Okay.
from that point, whatever the process Scrum Master, organizations slowly moving to technical because both the things can do by the technical person. Why he can better understand, he can guide the team like that. Okay. So in that way, also organizations are thinking what this is my perspective. I really don't know.
okay. So this is what my own perspective I have already shared. You may need to create a technical data remediation plan and you need to call for a hardening sprint if your code base is not as stable enough. And you need to raise a risk in the Jira or Rally or whatever it is, create an impediment, create a blocker and clear cut, put the reason for the blocker. Because blockers can be n number of things, no, unless and until it is not been echoed in the single source of truth, which is the tool, leadership may not have a visibility into it. So how you handle it, we are giving some pointers, but it all depends upon how do they respond back to you. Based on that, you may need to maneuver through the constraint. Okay. Okay. So in the interest of time, Vivek, do you want to tell anything, Vivek? You raised your hand.
Yes, Balaji.
Yeah.
See, I think she knows the technical things. That's what she told, right? So, like in my case, I don't know Pega or Java. Suppose if I am, I mean, if I am handling, I mean, if I am working as a Scrum Master for that particular project, so it will be difficult for me to identify. So in that case, like how to handle the situation, like yeah, that's what my question. Like in you, I mean, suppose if you are handling this project in my condition, like how you are going to do it. So I just wanted
Okay,
a
so
suggestion
see,
from
it
your
all
side.
actually depends upon where am I. Okay, in some cases, what will happen? Unfortunately, you will be pulled as a scrum master or an agile coach in the middle of the execution. At that time, you cannot do much. But if you are in the beginning of the execution, you need to do a competency analysis, right? What are all the capabilities needed for this project? You create a competency matrix grid and then tell, okay, we have these people, these are all the capability needed, and then see the matching. If not, either you need to go for an internal resource augmentation or an external hiring, or you go for a training need. But then training will give only orientation. It will take some time to pick up the momentum. right? So when I form the squad, see in my in my agile contracting model, much of my engagements are managed capacity, which will tell 96 people I need. So when I form 12 into 8 squads, right? One squad is 8, so I form 12 squads. Okay, at a program layer, I'm saying when I form 12 squads, then I used to have a simple Excel or in the Confluence something like a team space. In Confluence, I used to create team space, project space, and product space. Anything and everything related to the team should go in that team space. Inside the team space, I maintain a tracker sheet in terms of the demand versus the supply. What is the demand in terms of the capability needed by the project? Where are we in terms of the resource augmentation? Okay, so first we need to make the team cross-functional. Then self-organization should come, and this need to be communicated to them. Agile means self-organization, agreed, but that is the end state of existence. One cannot become self-organized overnight. One need to become cross-functional first, and then only the self-organization will also sustain. Okay, like that I may, if you are not having the authority or positional authority to echo this, echo it to someone who has the positional authority to echo it back to the client. Like that, somehow you need to find ways of getting the things done. Okay, so we will come back on the questions if any, just to keep the ball rolling in terms of the slides. Okay, so here in these links, when I actually send this PPT to you all, you can actually pick up these links. In this, I have mentioned some pain points, what I had and what I did in terms of the capability building, all those things. Now, let us get into some of the challenges, what I thought from my end. Okay, for example, I have prepared one slide here, some challenges, okay, just to give a feel. Some of the challenges are unable to manage this one, defects, delays, and dependence. Okay, so can we go one by one? Let us take the first challenge, unable to manage defect, delays, dependencies, impediment, risk. Any suggestions how to handle it from your end?
Hi Balaji, I'm Sesha here.
Yeah, sure.
On the dependency part, maybe we can create some kind of an functional matrix or kind of an skill set like an tracker with the help of the technical leader or something, where they really stand. It can be in the model wise, or maybe the technical wise, or maybe the functionality wise. So based on that, they can give the training, or maybe they can schedule their upcoming practical planning to upgrade themselves. If they are beginner or if they are intermediate and they are expert, how they can enhance themselves or something. Is it fine? Is it correct? Because I just tried out this way.
Defect. These are all come under the metrics, right? Some of the defects or dependencies, impediments, risk we need to identify during the backlog grooming and then sprint planning day itself, right? And the defects also we are considering on the first day of the sprint, whatever carry forward from previous thing. But that we need to make some separate sessions for going through the defects. Separate meetings we have to set up why these many defects are there, and whether these are all duplicate or just logging, and what is the process to be established. These are all to be discussed again into the retrospective meetings. So why these are all coming in the, why these are all mainly raising, right? The quality of the code, or he is not understanding the product or development. Why these are all, who will manage these defects? Okay, these are all the things to come into picture when to manage the defects.
Okay. So my say is that when you are handling a defect, you need to create a defect management guideline. Say for example, if a defect comes, how am I going to respond to it? If a defect comes within the sprint, or rather during the time of a sprint, or for example, have clarity on whether it is a post go live or before go live, which is point number one. The second section is it is before go live, but it is within the sprint or outside the sprint. So some amount of workflow, some kind of a high level process flow need to be articulated for the work item type called a defect, because start treating defect also as one of the work item type, like user story, change request, tech refresh, incident and support tickets, production defects, compliance activity, maintenance activity. So your work, so your backlog could be mostly heterogeneous one. So in that, if there is a defect, have clarity on the defect management guideline. Second thing is it. Second thing is it delay. Delays can happen
Balaji,
due to n number of
sorry to
things.
interrupt. I think
Yes.
you are talking about defects, right? I think we need to check like what is the priority and severity of the defect, right? Based on that.
Correct. Correct. That is understood. Only if it is a critical defect, I am now going to work on it, because in Agile it is understood that we are always working on the highest priority work item.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Only if it is priority, I will see that also you can define it in your defect management guidelines and put a reference to your Agile team charter. When you create a team charter, you need to create a working agreement with the team. And if a defect comes, no need to panic. This particular thought should have been already anticipated. However, if the defect is a production bug, then everyone need to swarm together to fix it first, because the connotation of the defect matters. Okay. So when it comes to delay, okay, see, let me show you something.
Yeah. Regarding defects, one more thing is we need to conclude that on the during the retrospective meetings, and then what you called. I maintain separate.
Correct. You can handle it in the you can handle it in the retrospective in terms of course correction or a root cause analysis.
It is a part of the definition of done also in consultation with the QA team. Okay.
So my say is like this. See, I'm not telling others to do the way I am doing. But if I was in the situation, what is that will I do is I will create a defect management guidelines like this. I have a defect. First, I will have a clarity whether it is before go live or after go live. After go live, no need to do analysis. Everyone need to jump into action mode and then fix it. Okay. If it is before go live, then I will take a call whether it is within the sprint or outside the sprint, right? So how to handle it like this, I will create a process workflow and then I will give it to the team. So when I worked as a scrum master, I used to create some process workflow like this, and then I will give it to the testing team or the test manager. See, we all know that internally there will be some people for development and some people for testing. So let us accept the truth and then we will see what is that we can do. And before getting into this stage, have clarity on your defect work states. What are all the possible defect states supported by the tool, and have clarity on the workflow. Unless and until I know the workflow, I cannot create a guideline. Okay, like this, something is so when I like say some 3 to 4 years back or sometime when I was coaching the scrum masters, I used to coach the scrum masters on all these pointers, and I will give them the templates, because scrum masters also need coaching. Even coaches need coaching. Forget about scrum masters. So I will create like this and then I will give it to them. So okay, see, that is the role of an agile coach. Okay, for example, let me show you one more thing. 1 minute, just to stay focused. Okay, I will take it from here. See, for example, in terms of a vertical alignment, okay, for example, when someone says right here, if you understand dependencies, why does a dependency typically come? See, dependencies should be captured at an epic level itself, or at least at a sub-epic level. Unfortunately, people are not doing justice at a epic and a sub-epic level, and they are talking about dependencies at a user story level. Okay, so what am I trying to say is, if you create a product, if you create a rolling wave backlog like this, then if you do decomposition of your epic and sub-epic proactively, if you do feature backlog refinement, I'm not talking product backlog refinement, I'm talking a program level cadence called the feature backlog refinement. Once in 10 days, all the features will be okay, work on the definition of ready at a feature level, as simple as that. You take your epic and sub epic. Periodically, this need to be cleaned up at a portfolio level. This need to be broken down into features at a program layer. And once in 10 days, I used to have a cadence called feature backlog refinement. In that feature backlog refinement, my product owner, scrum master, entire team, they will take a feature, they will slice the feature into user stories, and then they will put that WSJF, weighted shortest job first on the feature. And by the time the product backlog comes, the features are broken down. People struggle at a team level cadences because they have not done the homework at portfolio and program level cadences. You can yourself think through. People are spending time of planning when you are supposed to do an execution. So what will happen? Naturally, on the last day of the sprint, all the stories will go to testing team. And as someone pointed out, this is the reason for a mini waterfall model also. Without implementing test-driven development, behavior-driven development, and all, you cannot implement. It is bound to be a mini waterfall only.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That hybrid model is continue to.
So here, what you need to do, something like this. You take your features and you put your teams. When I say at a program level, I have multiple teams, correct? If I talk from a scaled agile implementation point of view, I have 5 teams. Okay, let's say for example. Okay, now let's say I have 5 features for now. Before even getting into more elaborate discussion, I need to understand the feature, and as part of the understanding, have clarity like this. Okay, feature F1 is going to cut across team 2, team 3, team 4. Feature F2 is going to cut across these 3 teams. Like this, you start doing visual thinking. Visual thinking has nothing to do with the tool. Jira, Rally, version 1. Tool comes later. Clarity in the thought process is utmost importance. It can be done even on a paper pen. Like this, you need to do a visual thinking. And then, okay, now it is clearly evident feature 1 has a dependency with team 2 and team 3. Then I will proactively talk to the scrum masters of these 2 teams in my scrum of scrum meetings. You are also talking. You are talking at a user story level, but I am talking at a feature level itself. So when you are doing it, it is important and urgent. When I am doing it, like it is only important. Like I have a lot of time to handle it. Like this, you may need to see shift left doesn't mean only doing testing at the beginning. Trying to do a proactiveness and early validation, like in your end-to-end process. Okay, now the thing is like this. This is at a feature level. The same thing you can convert it into a user story level, because sometimes dependencies could be there within the teams also, right? So within the same team. So here, instead of this feature, I'm just converting this into a user story. Okay. So what will happen for the same team? User story 1 is been handled by this team member 2 and team member 3. So like this, you do visual thinking and proactively handle the dependencies. So that's what I'm trying to tell. And the impediments. Okay, impediments, you need to tell your scrum master to measure an impediment tracker. Start maintaining an impediment tracker wherein aging of the impediments should be measured. Like you have a defect aging, when you quantify the aging of the impediments, accountability will be more. Okay, and and when it comes to risk, then you can do a program increment planning, right? The ROAM risk: resolved, owned, accepted, mitigated. So when you do a PI planning, your ROAM risk is proactively going to call the risk at a program layer. So I think if you do this, at least 30 to 40% of your burden will come down. Because because when I speak to multiple people, multiple scrum masters, most of the problems are in terms of handling defects, delays, dependencies, risk, and impediments. Only these 5 things again and again. So if you have clarity and a grip to handle all these things, then I think to a considerable extent, you will have a sigh of relief. The second thing is how do you coordinate the work among multiple teams? Okay, so any thoughts here from your end?
Balaji, again, Pranavi here. Before
Yeah.
that, this managing dependencies, delays, defects.
Mm.
So if even though we, like, as you said, I was jumped into that project in between, not from initial level. So even though we were classifying the defects and emergency, there were a lot of hands-off mechanism from here. Then sprint backlog, again they need to work defect, again they have to come back and work sprint backlog. So what I suggested in that aspect, right? So we have a separate team for production defects. So from every module team, we were rotating them for the production defects, fixing production defects, and so that sprint work will go smoothly. And also we have, I suggested them to have an integration team with 2-3 people, senior people, who will work on dependencies. If anything they find immediate dependency, they will jump into, and it is called squad team. We put a name, and they will jump into that dependency. They will work. They will be having overall idea of overall project, and they will be working on. In that case, it went well for me. I don't know my idea was correct or wrong. I just wanted to discuss with you. I followed this way.
Yeah, so it has worked out for you, right? So it is a workable solution indeed.
But
Yeah,
it's,
Pranavi,
to be honest,
for,
it is not Scrum. I know it is not Scrum.
Pranavi, for your confidence, right? We had a similar team structure for handling production bugs, right? Where we use a similar method, like where we rotate one developer per month into that particular team, where they explicitly work on reducing the customer bugs. Okay, like that, we actually ran for a quarter. There were like significant number of defects have reduced, and delays have reduced in terms of teams backlog being done, and at the same time that had in fact reduced how the teams are getting disturbed in between the sprint. So for me also it worked. Like Balaji said, it was an appropriate solution rather than the right solution.
Right. That is one of the thing. When I was working with the CA through my company, so there they used to follow every 3 months. They used to rotate the team members. Okay, for they have to work on the production or the support side, and then on the development side. It will be rotation policy. They are having it.
I took one step ahead for even for dependencies also in my case, because there was no choice left for me.
I just want to ask one question to Parashuram and Srinivas. So you told, right, one particular person, so he will be engaged in this handling the bugs. Suppose, so then I think he won't be a part of the sprint, development sprint during that time, right?
Yes, they will not, in my case, they'll not be part of the development sprint. Their only focus is customer bugs.
So customer bugs, like it depends, right? If customer bugs are there in the backlog, then he will work. If there are, suppose if only one bug or two bug is there and the sprint duration is 10 working days. I mean, assume that it is 2 weeks. Then I think he may fix it for the 2 days, and the rest of the 8 days, what he will be, how you are.
Great question. See, in our case, our purpose of having that team is we had a big backlog of customer bugs, P2, P3.
Yeah, same.
Right. So the focus was to concentrate on P2 and P3s. Whenever there is a PagerDuty error where they have a P0 or P1, they will work on it, and then they'll continue to do in P2, P3. Nothing really comes back to the main team.
Some organizations have separate teams for handling all this P2, P3, whatever coming from the customers. So once that is customer, that will be analyzed by some of the teams. First customer interface team, they will analyze whether that is actually a feature related or fix kind of thing, and they will coordinate with whoever that production tickets, and they will send to that separate team.
Yeah, we have
We'll
that
call
kind
it
of,
as some called as a quick response teams kind of things we have created. Those teams will handle all these things.
Yes, we have a clear working agreement between who handles P0s and P1s, who handles P2s, and who handles real enhancements and P3s.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
Okay,
So-
let me tell something. Others all can go and mute for now because we are hearing some noise at the background. Okay, see, one way to handle this is, first of all, okay, one second. One way to handle this is, first of all, one need to have clarity on the percentage distribution of work item types in the heterogeneous backlog before I begin the work. Generally, if I have a backlog which is a sprint backlog, let's say for example, before I begin the work, I used to see out of 100, let's say, how much is the defect. Okay, probably 10 percentage goes for defect, 15 percentage goes for incident and a support ticket, 30 percentage goes for your user stories, and once again 10 percentage goes for a change request. So create visibility, clarity on the percentage distribution of different work item types first. Then one of the fine concepts from Kanban says, in your task board, you can create something called a class of services, right? Class of services are horizontal swim lanes, wherein you will define process policy explicitly for each of the lane. If it is a defect, what am I supposed to do? Define it, document it, socialize it, and create a consensus, and then keep it ready so that when the situation comes, you can respond to it. No need to react to it. It is like a fire drill. Already, it is like a safety measure, clearly documented, kept everything ready. When actual fire comes, people no need to panic to that extent, because you do have a building a evacuation plan. Same thing, when you have utmost clarity on your heterogeneous backlog, then clarity will go to the level of how am I going to handle it using different class of services. So no, that is how no I have handled it. So when I create a, see, now the point is this: just because I'm using the Scrum does not mean I should not take inferences from Kanban. Because if I tell to my client I'm using Kanban, then the client may tell, no, you are not supposed to use Kanban. But no one prevents me if I go and create a swim lane in my task board. No one prevents me if I'm going to put a work in progress limit on the column. Who is going to prevent generally? Work in progress limit comes from Kanban, but you can still take some best practices from multiple framework and then, okay, and then use it here. Okay, that's what I'm trying to tell.
That's correct. Many engineering practices also comes from the XP.
Correct. So depending upon the situation, what is appropriate to you, you can take from other frameworks and then you can plug and play it. Because the objective is not to implement Scrum. The objective is not even to implement your safe. Objective is to deliver value to client within the constraints. With that level of mindset, if you are working, like I think no things can be handled in a pretty much better manner. Okay, so can we go to the next one? So how do you coordinate among multiple teams? Do you have a mechanism or any suggestions?
We do a couple of things. One is we have a bi-weekly meeting. If it is, sorry for that. If it is a different portfolio, if it is inside the same portfolio, we have Scrum of Scrums. Right. These are the two things what we use to interact with multiple teams.
Yeah, during the Scrum of Scrums, this whatever the dependencies and the delays also can be highlighted. What are on the different teams? Okay, so those can be taken back to the teams and they can work together to complete the work.
Yeah, so that is why I generally used to tell to my teams, whenever you are doing planning, generally think through till the production deployment. It is not enough if it completes the sprint, because your sprint is just a potentially shippable increment. There is no guarantee at the end of every sprint we are we are pushing the code to the production, right? Because of production deployment is still being driven by the release calendar. So think through on in terms of the coordination activities, in terms of the planning activities, right from the concept to cash. Okay, so you may need to find out. So how will you know this unless and until I have clarity on the workflow state at a feature level? For okay, say for example, if I actually pick up this particular feature, what I showed here, no, like sometime back it was a feature one. Then define, design, for a, say for a example, I have a feature here in my portfolio Kanban board. I have the flow state of the feature as discovery, define, design, implementation, done, deploy. This particular done is internal done to your performance team or a UAT team. Final state is a deploy. So if I have clarity on the feature flow in my portfolio Kanban board, and if I have clarity on my epic and sub-epic flow in terms of discovery, define, design, implementation done, what is the entry criteria, what is the exit criteria on all these columns, what is the acceptance criteria on all these columns, then those answers will actually flow over here in terms of a coordination between multiple teams. See, now I fully understand that many of the people are already doing it, but I want to still elevate the level of a proactiveness. Instead of thinking at a user story level, it will be better if you do planning at a sub-epic level, so that by the time it comes to feature and the user story, you can have a better grip. Okay, fine. Then what about this one? How to handle there is a delay if it is due to third party vendor? Like any thoughts come to mitigate it?
We will pick, I mean, what I did means I pick up second ordered item. I used to suggest the team to work on until the third party vendor finish that one, because
Correct.
anyway
we have to handle that. The other way to handle it, finding out alternate options like creating a stub or driver or some kind of a mock-up interfaces to actually simulate the critical calls till the time that particular third party component comes into my landscape. Now the point is this. In a large scale transformation, that is the reason in a scaled agile framework, there is a layer called there is a train called the solution train. Generally, we will go for solution train if and only if you have a third party vendor or a supplier. Don't go for a solution train if you don't have a vendor, because every train comes with a cost. In my agile contracting model, I used to factor it in the blended cost approach. See, now my way of looking at it is, whatever solution you are trying to provide should not only solve your technical aspect of the problem, you also look holistically from a business context. I am putting a solution train, and every train I need to onboard a person. If I put a solution train, then who will pay for the train? So don't go for trains when it is not needed. Okay. So the other way to handle is, if can you write a custom code or some kind of a proxy call or some kind of a stub or driver or some kind of a interfacing mechanism which will at least partially simulate the business flow till the time the third party vendor comes. And all these things need to be captured in your ROM board right from the beginning of the program incremental planning. Okay, whether it is accepted or owned by whom, what needs to be done, try to get a ETA from them and then make a follow-up. If they are not responding, at least let your client and your leadership team know this is the thing. Okay. Now let us take a situation like this. The PO is from client side and not supportive. So how do you face the situation like this? I can tell my experience if you wanted to hear from me directly. Okay, let me tell in the interest of time too. See, my product owner for a particular engagement, first of all, he was having a conflict with my team in terms of he was not allowing the team to build the enablers, because your spike stories and the enablers, right, which are a technical initiatives, and he is not interested in all these things. Then I had a conversation with the product owner and then explained them without building the architectural runway, I cannot launch my train. Your train cannot run without having the track. So my architectural runway in terms of enablers, say for example, creating a web service call, creating a Microsoft, creating a, creating a kind of a microservice deployment, or rather creating a REST API services. Unless and until I create a REST API service call and then keep it for my web service, I cannot configure this particular REST API with my axiomatic or the third party service in my endpoint URL configuration. And we have a file called as a XAML file. Okay. So what we used to do there in this particular XAML file, we used to configure the endpoint URL, okay, of the REST API. Only if I configure, on top of it, I can put a wrapper class and then deploy it in my Docker or a Kubernetes container. So some time will be going for all these things. Initially, my product owner was not supportive. So I had some one-on-one coaching calls or mentoring session or whatever it is. And now we are able to handle it. Okay. And in terms of too many requirement changes within a sprint, in these cases, what you can do is you need to create a governance model saying that in the middle of the sprint, whenever there is a requirement change or something to something to entertain, it is not a question of accepting or rejecting it. What are all the factors you consider to do an impact analysis? And then you need to socialize it. See, I understand these things are very difficult to do. It will take time, but at least this particular webinar should give you the feel, what are you supposed to do? And slightly on how are you supposed to do? Okay, so that you actually go with a better equipped to your own play field. Okay, so how am I creating a governance model? I create an impact analysis saying that, okay, this particular change came. Is this change so critical to the goal of the sprint? If yes, then what can be done? Can I remove some other user stories and then try to create a placeholder for this? See, you cannot pour 10 liters of water into a 6-liter water bottle. It is obvious that it is going to overflow. So what can be done now within the constraint? Can I remove 2 or 3 lesser critical user stories so that I create a space to put this so-called higher priority? But once or twice you can entertain this. But if it goes like a pattern, then you need to go back to your management. And you cannot go back to your management without having data in the hand. So create a scope variance report. Right from the Jira, you can extract a scope variance report, which is going to tell what is the degree of variance. Go with some data to the leadership team. Okay, does that make relevance to you, whatever I'm trying to tell now? Or you have any other thoughts?
No, for the too many requirement changes within a sprint, okay, for this, we need to discuss with the PO. So once the sprint is locked after the sprint planning day, why these requirements are coming in again, new requirements are coming.
Okay, so you are actually discussing with the PO, then what? No,
we can. That's what we have to take whatever the concerns from the team members. Okay, of the too many requirements, and in the middle of the sprint or at the end of the sprint, we need to complete all those things. Okay. So
fine.
What is the? How can we reduce? See, we have to work out with the product owner or product manager.
Yeah, product owner only. See.
Yeah, that's not. See.
Yeah,
how to reduce this we need to make a call with and come to an agreement with the product owner and as well as with the team also.
Okay, let us take a situation now. Now some other user story comes. There is a difference between the user story coming on the 3rd day of the sprint and the same user story coming on the 9th day of the sprint. So what I'm trying to say is, it is not just on the criticality, it is also on the timing of the change. Everything need to be factored. If it is coming on the 9th day of the sprint, they can very well, like, they can might as well wait for one more day. Okay, so that we are anyway going to begin the next sprint. So do an impact analysis on the volume of the change and the timing of the change, and it should not become a habit. Every time if this pattern comes, then something that is wrong between the, in terms of the communication or coordination between the product owner and his key product owner. Because generally these product owners also have a reporting structure called product management office or the chief product owner. So some kind of a requirements management should be there in the place. If a requirement change or some other user stories come, how am I going to entertain it? And document it in the team charter, create a consensus. Correct?
No, that's what. This is for the acceptable way we can take, but too much we cannot acceptable from the PO.
Correct.
Okay, so these are all the concerns raised many
now
times.
the challenge
by
is
the team.
more, see, now in a practically this challenge is more critical because unfortunately in most of your engagements, product owner will be from the client side. And they will always have an upper hand. So
right. That is also, that pressure is there to team members where they will not say no.
So what I have done is, see, what I have done is, I have actually waited for a month and I have taken the metrics. I have taken the metrics across the sprint. Okay, you can go on mute. Please go on mute.
Okay.
So what I did is, I have taken the metrics, like across the sprint, and then I created a report saying that in sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, for these 3 sprints, this is the percentage of the scope variance in terms of the story points or in terms of the absolute count. See, the point is this: when you do that homework of creating the data, your data speaks for you. If you don't have the data, no one is willing to have conversation. See, think about a situation. If you are a leadership guy, if someone comes to you and then tries to explain the pain point, will you not ask him the data? So take time to convert your pain points into meaningful data, and then pull the metrics, keep the metrics. Then if you go with the metrics, possibility of acceptance will be more. If not, it's not going to work out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that is my perception.
Yeah, we have to report all this variance.
Correct. Variance from your Jira or your metrics.
Yeah, user stories variance in the every sprint report at the end of the sprint.
Okay, so let me go to, okay, see, these are the challenges what I just thought to put it from a Scrum Master. Now let us go to challenges from as an Agile coach. As an Agile coach, I had some challenges in terms of dependencies across multiple art. So what we did, we had a meeting called, because in the interest of time, I'm just giving the direct solution. So what I did, we had a meeting or a program level cadence called it art sync up. So so weekly once, we used to have this sync up across multiple trains. Okay. When I say train, it is a team of team. Within one train itself, you'll be having 4 or 5 teams. Okay. So I am talking about a landscape of that much magnanimity. Then PI planning related readiness and activity. So for this, what I did, we have created a PI report out template. 1 second. 1 second. Okay, a kind of a report out template, something like this. Even before the beginning of the PI, let's say, even before the beginning of the PI, we have created a template like this. What is the PI objective? What is the target? What is the KPI? What is the dependency? And you see here, PI had not even started. So many risks we have raised. All these risks, so many dependencies have been called out. These are all real-time data. Okay, not like something which I downloaded from the internet. I have made sure that I am not exposing the client name here. But the point is, these are all real-time data, and we have done this. All this WSGIF score, we have done all these activities, and then we get into the PI. So if someone gets into the PI by doing all these activities, then all these can be taken care. And some challenges, like I had different teams had a different like a different agile maturity level. So
But who has to do this? Who is the role? RTE has to do this, or
see, actually speaking,
solution
where
has
which
to
one
do
you
this?
are asking? PI planning related readiness, no?
All right.
Balaji,
Right, and art also, whatever the dependencies across multiple arts.
See, it is the RTE's responsibility to create a PA level readiness by actually working with the Scrum Masters.
Correct.
Correct. Yes. RTE had actually created the sheet.
Okay, so all these whatever points you have mentioned here is the responsibility of the RTE.
RTE, but unfortunately, if your RTE doesn't know what to do, how to do, Agile coach should mentor him.
Okay.
Right. See,
Yeah,
okay, so in an ideal world situation, yes. But if the RTE himself is blinking, then what to do? Someone need to handhold him at least for the first PI, right?
correct.
Once people gets their grip, they will actually pick it up. Okay. So these are all some of the challenges what we had, and some challenge what I had. Different teams had a different agile maturity level. So what I used to do, I will actually filter out only those teams which had a lesser maturity level, and we had something called a hard touch and a soft touch. Soft touch means it is only facilitation. Hard touch means the coaching need to be given. So my say is simple. If you have 15 teams to manage at a program layer, not all teams are of equal maturity level. Have clarity on the so-called teams where maturity levels are very less, and you do coaching there. Okay, other teams you can do a kind of a facilitation. Fine. Next is middle management exhibited a resistance. For that, what I did, I created an outcome-based plan. Okay. So unfortunately, I'm not having much time to tell, but I will try to compress it. For example, reduce the cycle time by 10%. If I'm doing like this, I'm creating an outcome-based plan, and for to achieve this particular outcome or the KPI, teams will come together to work. Okay. So these are all some of the things. Lean portfolio management. Yes, we have implement. Okay, I'll just quickly show you because I may not have time to explain. So how I implemented lean portfolio management here. I have created the investment mix. Have clarity on different initiatives which need to be funded. First, you put all the initiatives. Look into the portfolio vision. Look into the quarterly priority, and create a strategy which one need to be funded for the quarter. And once funded, only the funded epics and the sub epics are going to become part of the road mapping. Okay, so see, so this is a different subject itself, lean portfolio management. I'm just showing you what I did. Okay, so this is the typical day in the life of a scrum master or an agile coach, generally speaking. Okay, attending multiple cadences, ceremonies, coach the teams and product owner. If you are an coach, you may also need to coach your scrum master also, and conduct agile maturity assessment, suggest the right metrics at the right time, and facilitate them to do your lean portfolio dynamic budgeting. Can I take 10 more minutes in the interest of our learning? I'll just
No
take
problem.
10 more minutes.
No problem.
Yes,
Go
please.
ahead.
Sure,
Right.
Balaji.
So
Sure.
what I'm trying to say is that, no, see, it is okay. If you take my own day, typically my day may go like this. If I have multiple programs, what I used to do, I will take turns to attend the meeting because much of the meetings happen at the same time. So coaching product owner, conducting agile maturity assessment, creating dynamic budgeting, and recently we have started something called balance sheet driven agile transformation. So what we used to do is we would take a portfolio level balance sheet, real time balance sheet, and analyze the numbers in it. Okay, analyze the numbers in it in terms of top line, bottom line, compounded annual growth rate, CAGR, all those numbers, and then come up with a strategy to increase the numbers. Because see, you are doing an agile transformation. If it is not creating a positive impact like on your balance sheet, then what are you doing actually? The transformation should be an improvement journey, right? Improvement and an impactful journey. So we will create a strategies, and this is business transformation, not just agile transformation, wherein we will also touch upon acquisition and mergers, etc. Okay, I am talking about that level. Okay, so these are all the things in day of an executive coach. Here it's operating at an executive agile coach. Fine. So this is something what I thought to just put in terms of limitations of a certification, which we all know. I just thought to put maybe once I send this PPT, you can just take a look into it. By this time, you also know it, right? Your certifications may give you the good thoughts to ask some correct questions, but it may not give you the entire grip to get the answers for all the questions. Answers will come from the real-time experience, or like attending meetups, webinars, talking to people who has already played that role. So one of the way how I can get a good grip on any subject is have conversation with someone who is expert in that subject. So you will get the experiential learning, right? So I just thought to put these things. Okay, so here the next 3 or 4 slides, I'm just going to talk about quickly on my mentorship program. But before I get into it, do you have any questions, any kind of a pending questions in your mind, which I like to answer now? Like if you thought that no, this question I should get it answered in the webinar, you can ask it now.
Yeah, hi Balaji, this is Krishna here. I have one question.
Yeah, Krishna.
Yeah. So is it necessary to work in a Scrum to be called as a agile or agile practitioner or a guide? Because
I don't think so.
Okay.
But generally, Scrum is the easiest framework or the commonly accepted framework among multiple. See, the point is simple. Somewhere you need to start the journey, right? So to start the journey, definitely one framework is needed. But over a period of time, if you are reaching a maturity level, wherein your customized framework can actually work for you. But to begin the journey, it is always better to go by a prescriptive framework.
Yeah, so because I have knowledge or worked in Kanban and Lean. So, but Scrum is something different. I mean, my industry, engineering service, we have a different product and cycle and everything.
Correct.
So we used to work in a Scrum methodology only, but a different way of working or different terminologies. We will not call it a Scrum, but exactly the same thing. Everything, daily stand-up meeting or like this. But when it comes to naming, it is different. So is it do I fall in agile category or no?
See, what is the end result? See, what is the end result that you are trying to achieve?
End result is like physical product or I can say automotive component.
The point is this, yeah. Agile means it is my own way of looking into it. Anything which is done in an incremental manner, anything which is done in an iteratively, incrementally, factoring the feedback loops, and also always aligning it to business value as perceived by the client. Okay, and also taking a lean approach to it is called agile.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, see, for example, when you are doing your sprint defines the speed, how fast I can render the software. Whereas your program objective goal or even the sprint goal is going to give that direction. So it is a vector quantity. You have speed and you have direction, because what's the point in driving a car in the wrong direction, right? There's no point in driving the car fast in the wrong side of the road. So you need to have your goal, which comes from the program increment objective or your release goal, and you have your time boxed activities of 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. So you still have a iteration, and you give a demo wherein you are creating a feedback loop, and you are always working on the highest priority work item as perceived by the client, eliminating the waste. Of course, lean has much more connotation than removing the waste, but in the entire process, I should not also have waste items, removing the waste. I think if anything satisfies these 5 combinations, I can boldly call it as an agile. Yes. Whether you implement Scrum or Kanban, that is immaterial.
Okay, fine. Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Okay, so here I'm just trying to introduce because some of the participants in this group are already my own mentees, but still in the interest of the larger audience, I'm just introducing you to my own Agile mentorship program, what I created. This is a framework, kind of the model of the program. And here, if you see the detailed view, you can actually take it from here. Okay, so what are all the, for example, if someone asks me, in terms of level 1, level 2, level 3, like fundamentally I have created multiple levels based on where are you currently and where you want to go. So these are all the capabilities which can be obtained as part of my own mentorship program. Real-time templates will be provided. You will be mentored hands-on to do agile maturity assessment, and then how to coach your product owner and the scrum master, how to formulate your agile transformation strategy, and how to create a sustainability plan. See, sustainability plan is very important because once the moment your agile coach is getting a disbanded from the team, means disengaged from the team, what is the guarantee that the team is going to continue the momentum? Because till the time coach is there to remain. So how are you creating a playbook? How are you creating a sustainability plan? All these things will be coached, okay, depending on where are you currently. So generally there is a process what I have in place generally, going forward. At least first I will connect with the person to understand where are they and where they want to go, and I have created different levels also, level 1, level 2, level 3. And these are all a kind of I may not call it as a testimonial, but still I just wanted to show how my mentees feel as part of interacting with me. So I just thought to put over these things. Okay. So many of them participated in the webinar, and then they enrolled in the coaching or the mentorship program. A kind of snapshot from my WhatsApp groups. So I just thought to put it over here. So the intent is this. See, getting an offer letter is not only the intent. The intent is to improve the capability. Whether you use it within the organization or outside the organization, that is up to you. Okay. So just thought to give some glimpses of it. These are all some of the things which came on my way from some of my mentees.
Balaji, it is going into the coaching level, right? From Scrum Master to you are taking into the Agile coach and program.
Correct, definitely right. See, the point is, if you are already working as a Scrum Master, then probably I will set up a discussion with you, and then I can come up with a customized coaching plan for that person.
No. Other than coaching, what are the next ladders, different ladders for the
okay, I will tell you. Now, what is that? Okay, for now, what is that we have in
transformation side or some other things?
Yeah.
Transformation side.
I'll just show
is
you.
There any path we can define?
See, for example, I have here different levels for different person, because one size fit is not going to work out, right? As we all know. And if you see here, recently, okay, I will be sending you these links to all of you. You can take an offline look, but to just to quickly answer your question, we have something like level 1, level 2, level 3. Depending upon where are you, you can select the levels also. And see, these are all the topics. For example, Scrum, Kanban metrics, Agile transformation, DevOps, coaching model, Agile scaling model. Okay, let me tell you quickly. One person came to me last week, okay, and that person asked me, sir, Balaji sir, you are actually coaching some of the guys, right? Why are you saying Kanban also need to be learned? Because I got surprised, because some people think Scrum Master means only mastering the framework called as, only that particular framework. Absolutely no. Together with Scrum, you need so many supportive areas, right? When you want to really become a coach, it is not enough if you only know Scrum and Kanban. You need to know how to do an agile transformation road mapping. You need to speak the language of DevOps, and you need to know what are all the coaching framework, coaching models you have, what are all the organization change management models you have, and you need to have grip on the extreme programming practices. When someone is taking your help on agile contracting model, then you need to know how to write an agile contract, and your design thinking, system thinking, lean thinking. And one of the important neglected area is agile architecture and the emergent design pattern. Because in an agile driven engagement, architecture is a intentional, whereas your design pattern is a emergent. Okay, let me give an example. You have two modules, whether it is a synchronous communication or an asynchronous communication between these two modules, that is actually fixed. So your architecture is intentional. But whether I'm going to do it through a message queue or through a Java messaging services, those options will be deferred till the last responsible moment. So, okay, defer your commitment till the LRM, so that when the requirement changes, you can be no, like, see, if you are fixing everything no too hard, fixed at the beginning, then when the requirement changes, cost to change will be more. So from that perspective, I have formulated these topics. Okay, so one second, wait, just to, if you go to level 2, so level 2 is a different level. Plan for strategic refactoring, leading exponential change, creating DevOps handbook and playbook, cultural transformation model. I don't think any certification teaches how to do a cultural transformation model, at least to the best of my own knowledge. How to create an executive leadership guide to create large scale transformation, mathematical approaches, real time case studies, how to create continuous improvement assessment tool, and principles of a product development flow. All right. So these things come under level 2. If you go level 3, it is a very advanced level. I have 30 topics in it. Agile contract, capital expenditure and operational expenditure, how to do dynamic budgeting, hands-on I will teach. And then we get into case studies and all this Kaizen culture and how to balance system of delivery, system of transformation, system of continuous improvement. So these links will be sent to you. You can take your time to look into the link, and then if interested, please do come back for your own interest.
Yeah. One question regarding that advanced capex and opex. What is the role Agile coach will play over there?
Okay, fine. See, capital expenditure
Budgeting.
and the the role of an agile coach is to create a dynamic budgeting model and to create something called a horizontal guardrails. In my horizontal guardrails, I will decide how much of capital expenditure need to be funded and how much of operational expenditure need to be funded. See, capex and opex was a term from say 4 version, but in the recent version, anyway, it will be inherently factored in my investment themes and the guardrails as part of the lean budgeting concept. You have your guardrails, right? Let me show you practically instead of just telling. This is a guardrail. See, horizon budget guardrail, P1, P2, P3, P4 across the different varieties. Okay, like how much we have funded. Okay, this has been taken from some other tool. I'm just showing you the clip alone. If someone asks me, can you show it here? Okay, here you can take a look.
Okay, and but here, these are all termed as a cost of the quality kind of thing also, right? What P1,
sorry.
This is a cost of the quality. Because of that only this P1, P2 arises, right? Or is this a priority one?
No, this is program increment 1, program increment 2, 3,
okay,
4.
Okay. Sorry. I am in a...
Yeah. So this is actually, program increment 1, 2, 3. Along the program increments, when I'm trying to fund it dynamically, what category of applications I am going to fund? Okay, now actually
I got it.
Now actually how to do it now? Here what happens in the customized agile framework? Just a minute. Okay, let me stay organized. Okay, in this customized agile framework, I create the investment themes, and these things will be tagged to my Epic by talking to a rally admin. I talk to my rally admin saying that I need my investment themes for the epics to be of these particular varieties. So he will be configuring that. Then I will be tagging the epic and sub epic to these particular investment theme using a concept called a EBCM, Enterprise Business Capability Model, wherein this investment theme will be tagged back to my portfolio KPIs. So those things will be taught. It's not coaching means I will teach, I will give the real-time template so that you can do it hands-on. Okay, fine. Anyway, I will be sending you the links to you so you can pick it up from there. Okay, can we do one thing? People who are there in this webinar, can you please put your mail IDs here before we wrap up so that I can send the PPT and the document? I can might as well send it here, but it will be better if you get your mail ID. We can also use it for our future references. And please share your Gmail ID alone, yeah, because if I want to share something, I can put it on the Google Drive, right click and give you a Gmail ID. Okay. I think I'm pretty much done. If any queries, we can connect later off.
Balaji, can you tell about that JD based coaching? I think.
Okay, see, JD based coaching is something on a need basis. If you are having a client interview or if you are having an interview, some of the people used to block my time 1 day heads up, and I actually coach the people only for that particular JD, which is called a JD based coaching.
Okay.
Right? So you were asking me that particular thing only, right? JD based coaching is once you send me the JD, I will coach you only pertaining to the JD. Okay, as simple as that.
Okay,
Right.
is there any program manager like RTE certification under the Scrum.org?
No. RTE comes under SAFE, right?
Yeah,
SAFE.
similar any
Yes, I
similar
do
one is there.
certification too. I do certification too because I'm a SPC, but I can't do RTE. I think so. I accept RTE and architect, like I can do certification.
No.
Because like I have the license to do.
Yeah, that's fine. I wanted to understand whether in the Scrum.org any certifications is there.
I don't think so because in the Scrum.org you have only Cal 1, 2, 3. Not like an RTE, right?
Okay. No, is it similar? Is it similar? Cal 1, 2, 3 similar to?
Absolutely no.
Okay.
Because your RTE is more of a program level execution, whereas Cal and all these things, they talk about business agility and they talk about so many things. Okay. So here, coming back to this 150 interview questions and answer is something what I formulated because many people asked me. So here, what I do is that I will send a document which contains 150 questions and really coach the people on all the 150 questions and also give the templates for them. This is something like a breakup. When someone asks me, okay, in that 150 question, how does the questions pattern look like? Diversification. You have 30 questions from Scrum, 15 questions from Kanban, so on and so forth. Okay, this is separate thing. And one more thing, what I did included here is Agile project management and program management. I have a couple of mentees for this, and here we deal at an Agile project and program management. Okay, so anyway, since I have your mail IDs, I will be mailing you my service offering a document, together with this PPT and my YouTube channel link. This is my YouTube channel. So whenever you have time, you can look into it and then come back to me. Okay. I don't believe more in PPTs. Yeah. So the PPT is used just for my reference purpose. All the other videos will have real-time templates, but I put only the introduction video because I cannot put all the recordings on the YouTube, right? So level 2 lesson plan introduction, level 1 lesson plan means the first class alone. So if you want to know what is there in the level 2, you just click on it. Okay, just listen to this video. It will cover. Okay, so fine. I'm just stopping this share. Okay, I think I'm done. Can we end the webinar? Vivek, do you have any question, Vivek?
Thank you, Balaji. It's very useful.
Thank you, Balaji.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Thank
Balaji, I have few questions.
Balaji.
Probably, I think I want to connect you offline.
You just ping me on WhatsApp and then block some time. Then we can connect.
Yeah, sure, Balaji. I am. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thanks, Balaji.
We can connect offline. Okay, fine. I'll just.
Thank you, Balaji. Thank you, everyone.